Wise man, this video did not reach you by chance. Sit by my side, quiet your heart and your mind. Let go of the rush and the weariness of the day for a moment. Close other windows, stop jumping from one video to another, and allow the wisdom that will be shared here to relax you and find space within you. I want to read to you the verse that will guide our entire encounter today. Let's open the Bible in Proverbs chapter 25, verse 28, where it is written, "Like a city whose walls are broken through is a man who lacks self-control." Keep this analogy in your spirit, for I will explain it in detail during this video. This is a principle I left recorded in the Word of God that transforms the life of anyone who applies it consistently. What has passed through your defenses without asking permission? What has already plundered your peace, your finances, your word, because you yielded to an external impulse? But now, from what I will share with you here, this scenario will no longer repeat itself in your life. This I prophesy. I want you to know how we will proceed from here. I will read to you the Word of God, especially my writings in Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs. Between one reading and another, I will unfold the meaning and apply each counsel to your daily life, to your work, to your finances, to your relationships. I will speak in the first person, as if I were truly King Solomon, and as if you were sitting beside me tonight, listening to me explain why discipline is a wall and self-control a guardian. Allow me to make a brief prayer for you now. Lord, grant this wise man discernment to guard the gates of his heart, strengthen his inner walls, order his steps, and give him clarity to say yes to what builds and no to what steals. Let no rush, no outside voice, no inner storm govern more than your will. Amen. And if this word already finds an echo in you, join me in a simple and practical way. Subscribe to this channel and leave your like right now, not as an empty gesture, but as a declaration that you desire to grow as a man who fears God and walk in wisdom. Thus, we will continue sitting together, night after night, building strong walls, well-guarded gates, and paths of peace. When impulses rule, man who fears God, I want you to imagine with me the life of a man who builds his house with effort, but leaves the doors open day and night. Everything he has kept can be taken without resistance. So it is with the heart that does not know self-control. He may even accumulate riches, raise projects, and conquer titles, but without inner government, everything is lost to the hands of impulses. Let us now open the Bible in Proverbs chapter 25, verse 28. There I wrote that, "Like a city whose walls are broken through is a man who lacks self-control." I was saying that a city may have warriors, may have a market, may have wealth, but without walls it becomes an easy target. What I wanted to show is that true power is not in tearing down the walls of other peoples, but in raising walls within oneself. I want to move now to Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32. I wrote that, "Better a patient man than a warrior, better one who controls his spirit than one who takes a city." Wise man, this is no small matter. I was comparing the military glory so exalted in those days with the invisible glory of mastering oneself. A general may subdue nations, but if he does not know how to restrain his own anger, he ends up a slave to himself. What I wanted to teach is that greatness lies in holding back when everything in you cries out to react. I will also read Proverbs chapter 4 from verse 23 to 27. There I wrote, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Keep your mouth free of perversity. Keep corrupt talk far from your lips. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil." Man who fears God, notice the emphasis. Guard the heart, restrain the mouth, fix the eyes, order the steps. I was showing that self-control is not an isolated act, but a continuous way of living. It is to watch the gates of the heart, like a sentinel who does not sleep. Now I will jump to Proverbs chapter 29, verse 11. I wrote that, "Fools give full vent to their rage, but the wise bring calm in the end." What I wanted to teach here was that anger is like fire. If released in flames, it devours everything around it. But if contained, it can warm and give light. Wise man, it is not about denying emotion. It is about taming it. Because lack of control turns into ashes what took years to build. Do you see how all these words converge? It is not about forbidding desires, but regulating them. It is not about killing emotions, but putting them in order. It is not about extinguishing strength, but learning to use it at the right time. Without inner walls, any impulse passes through, any temptation plunders, any hasty word destroys reputations. But when there is government, even in days of pressure, the city of life remains standing. Wise man, I want you to see how vulnerability is not always visible to the eyes. Many think they are safe because they have a good job, because their table is full, or because their schedule is busy. But if the inner walls are broken, an unexpected pressure is enough for everything to collapse. It is like a cracked dam. On the outside it seems firm, but the water finds cracks, and sooner or later destruction will come. So it happens with the man who spends impulsively, who speaks without thinking, who promises and soon gives up. He does not realize it, but he is letting invaders in silently. When there is no self-control, even small stimuli can govern life. An ad on the phone can empty the bank account. A careless comment can destroy a relationship. A single night of anxiety can nullify months of discipline. Man who fears God, this lack of walls opens breaches not only in the mind, but also in the body and the spirit. Because financial lack of control turns into debt, and debt into shame. Lack of control of the tongue turns into argument, and argument into hurt. Lack of control of desire generates exhaustion, and exhaustion steals energy for what really matters. Understand that this invisible vulnerability is treacherous because it does not scream, it whispers. No one announces that they lost credibility for lack of word. No one makes noise when they are trading consistency for novelty. But the results accumulate, and suddenly the whole life shows itself fragile. That is why I insist. Self-control is not a spiritual luxury, it is a structural necessity. Without it, wise man, there is no stability. And without stability, there is no prosperity. See how reactivity has a high price. When haste rules, it consumes time that never returns. When anger takes over, it corrodes relationships that took years to form. When anxiety takes hold, it robs the ability to see clearly. Man who fears God, notice with me. Immediacy seems small, but it multiplies losses, because what is lost in seconds can take decades to rebuild. I learned, and I wrote so that everyone would understand, that the human heart has a tendency to prefer now to later. Psychology calls this present bias, but long before I had already observed this reality. Man prefers today's coin to tomorrow's inheritance, prefers the pleasure of a sharp reply to the respect earned by silence, and so he trades future harvests for passing crumbs. Wise man, life is not built in haste, but with constancy. Immediacy also consumes credibility. Those who act in the heat of the moment make promises they cannot keep, take on projects they cannot sustain, and abandon allies halfway. Man who fears God, you know well the weight of losing someone's trust. Once cracked, trust does not return in the same state. And that is why the unstable lose doors, the reactive lose opportunities. The inconsistent even lose the right to be heard, not because others are evil, but because no one can lean on cracked walls. Think of the time, energy, and resources wasted by lack of control. Those who cannot say no accumulate impossible tasks, tire without fruit, and blame themselves for not getting anywhere. Those who cannot wait for tomorrow pull the seed before its time and never enjoy the fruit. Wise man, self-control is not only protection, it is also economy. It guards your energy for what really matters, protects your words so they are worth more, and steadies your steps so that each effort reaches the right destination. Therefore, man who fears God, understand that reactivity is not just a flaw of temperament. It is an invisible thief that steals the harvest, corrodes trust, and consumes tomorrow. When you learn to wait, when you decide not to respond immediately, when you choose constancy over impulse, you are raising walls. And those walls do not suffocate you, on the contrary, they allow your life to flourish in safety. Always remember, the man who governs himself may not be in a hurry to show strength, but he is the one who remains standing when the winds come. I will now invite you to open with me the word in Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verses 8 to 10. There I wrote that, "The end of a matter is better than its beginning. Patience is better than pride. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Do not say, 'Why were the old days better than these?' For it is not wise to ask such questions. Wise man, what I wanted to show here is that value is not in the beginning full of enthusiasm, but in the constancy that sustains until the end. The man who knows how to wait keeps his fruits, but he who yields to haste abandons before reaping. It is patience, not pride, that builds inner walls." Allow me also to read from Psalms chapter 37, verses 23 to 26. "These were words of my father David. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with his hand. I was young and now I am old. Yet I have never seen the righteous forsaken or their children begging bread. They are always generous and lend freely. Their children will be a blessing. Man who fears God, see how deep this counsel is. My father taught that God does not abandon the one who sets his steps on the right path. Even when he stumbles, he does not stay down, because the hand of the Most High sustains him. I, Solomon, when writing about self-control, was echoing this heritage I received. If the steps of the righteous are made firm by the Lord, that means that every disciplined choice, every decision guided by patience, every renunciation made with wisdom, finds support in heaven. Wise man, it is not only a matter of human effort but of divine alignment. When you decide to wait, when you prefer constancy over immediacy, when you guard your tongue instead of releasing words of anger, you are not only building walls, you are walking with God, and it is He Himself who holds your hand, and that is why I insist. Do not be deceived by pride that rushes, nor by nostalgia that clings to the past. Each time has its function, each process its beauty. What my father David said, and what I repeated in my writings, is that the Lord makes the way of the righteous firm. And if the way is made firm by Him, no wind of anxiety, no voice of immediacy, no temptation to give up can destroy. Man who fears God, set your steps in the rhythm of patience, and you will see how the end of all things can be better than the beginning. Wise man, perhaps you think discipline is prison, that limits suffocate freedom, but I want to show you that it is just the opposite. Just as the walls of a city did not serve to imprison, but to protect, so internal limits do not take freedom, but guarantee it. Without them, any invader passes through, any momentary desire becomes lord, any impulse governs like a tyrant. But when there is control, you can peacefully enjoy what you have built without fear of it being taken. Discipline guards, preserves, protects. See in the simple example of finances. The man who fears God, who controls his spending, even if he earns little, lives with rest, because he knows where each resource was applied. But the one who yields to every impulse to buy, even if he receives much, does not sleep peacefully, because he always fears the next bill, the next debt, the next collection. Do you see the difference? Control is not a burden, it is a shield. In the same way, the one who controls his tongue preserves honor, while the one who lets it loose destroys relationships that took years to flourish. That is why I say, discipline is like the tracks of a train. Without tracks, it does not move. It seems free, but in reality it is paralyzed. With tracks, it can travel long distances safely. Wise man, self-control does not limit your life, but gives it direction. It prevents strength from being wasted and ensures that each step leads to the right destination. Freedom is not doing everything you want, but being free from what enslaves. Understand also that self-control is an invisible structure that sustains all prosperity. When people trust you, it is because they know your walls are firm, that you keep what you promise, that you guard what is entrusted to you, that you do not change according to the mood of the day. Man who fears God, an enterprise grows not only because of the talent of the one who leads it, but because of the predictability of his actions. Trust is born when there is constancy, and that constancy is the fruit of self-government. Life may look grand on the outside, but if the inner walls are in ruins, any wind will knock the house down. Have you seen ancient cities that prospered for centuries and were later plundered for not maintaining their walls? So it is also with the life of the man who neglects self-control. He may even accumulate, but without self-government, everything fades away. Wise man, do not allow your story to be marked by achievements that collapsed for lack of inner vigilance. When you raise walls of discipline, you are preparing your life to withstand in times of crisis. The storm comes to all, but only those who already had firm defenses remain standing. Man who fears God, do not wait for the evil day to start watching. Do not leave it to learn in the middle of war how to use the weapons. Build your walls while there is still peace. Strengthen your limits when everything seems calm, because the future comes without warning. And when it comes, it will be too late to improvise protection. Remember that self-control is also care with what God entrusted to you. Your time, your body, your word, your relationships. When you treat each of these areas with clear limits, you are honoring the Creator who entrusted you with such gifts. Wise man, it is not only a matter of strategy, it is an act of worship, because the God who makes the steps of the righteous firm rejoices to see your life guarded, structured, able to resist the pressures of the world and the attacks of the enemy. Therefore, do not see discipline as something harsh, but as a sign of love. The farmer fences his vineyard not to stifle it, but so that the fruits may ripen safely. The shepherd leads his sheep into the fold not to imprison them, but to deliver them from wolves. So also self-control is the fence that protects the fruits of your life. Man who fears God, discipline does not steal your freedom, it preserves it, and where there are limits, there is room for true prosperity to flourish. Now, wise man, I want us to take together a brief break for communion. Close your eyes for a moment. Give to the Lord what has most crossed your defenses. Maybe words spoken without thought, maybe debts, maybe emotions you cannot contain. Pray silently. Ask God to strengthen your walls and give you clarity to discern each door that must remain closed. And if you feel it in your heart, share in the comments your Christian experience. You cannot imagine how much a simple testimony can build up the life of another wise man, and intercede for those who comment here below, for we all also need firm walls in life. The future stolen by immediacy. Man who fears God, I want to lay before you a truth I have observed in many reigns and also in the lives of common men. When self-control is fragile, the future is always plundered by the present. The man trades constancy for novelty, discipline for haste, processes for shortcuts, and in the end he loses tomorrow. A life without limits is like a field sown in the morning and uprooted at noon. There is no possible harvest. I want you to realize with me that it is not only about losing money or opportunities, but about losing stability. Because every time impulse governs, tomorrow is sold for pennies of immediate pleasure. Let us now open the Bible in Proverbs chapter 6 from verse 6 to 11. I wrote, "Go to the ant, you sluggard, observe her ways and be wise. She, having no chief, officer, or ruler, prepares her bread in the summer and gathers her food at harvest time. How long will you lie there, O sluggard? When will you get up from your sleep? A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a thief, and want like an armed man." Wise man, see how I use the image of the ant to teach about discipline. What I wanted to show is that constant effort, even without applause or supervision, guarantees tomorrow. But laziness, wrapped in small concessions, opens the door to misery. I want to jump now to Proverbs chapter 21 verse 5. There I wrote, "Well-planned schemes lead to abundance, but excessive haste leads to poverty. Man who fears God understands the contrast." It is not only about working hard, but about planning with patience. It is not only about desiring, but about sustaining processes to the end. I wanted to teach that abundance is the fruit of constancy, while anxiety, even when active, produces emptiness. It is like running in circles. You get tired, but you arrive nowhere. And I want to read still in Proverbs chapter 23, verses 4 and 5. I wrote, "Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Do not trust your own cleverness in this. Will you set your eyes on what is nothing? For surely wealth will sprout wings like an eagle and fly toward the heavens." Wise man, here I wanted to warn that anxiety for quick gain turns wealth into wind. The man who runs after gold without limits sees the gold fly. Not because working is evil, but because the ungoverned heart never finds rest. The real danger is not in working hard, but in letting haste and anxiety govern the spirit. Wise man, notice how instability closes doors that could remain open for years. When a man changes his goals according to the mood of the day, he never conveys trust. The one who promises and does not fulfill, who starts and does not finish, who speaks with enthusiasm today and gives up tomorrow, becomes an uncertain ally. And no one builds solid alliances on cracked walls. At work, this means abandoned projects, interrupted deals, lost clients. In the family, it means relationships weakened by lack of constancy. The unstable does not inspire safety, because his yes and his no have no root. When I speak of instability, I do not refer only to changing plans, but also to changing character. Man who fears God, the man who is inconstant in his attitudes, is like a river that today runs north and tomorrow bends south. His friends do not know whom to trust. His partners do not know if they can move forward with him. His household does not know if it will stand tomorrow. And all this happens because he has not established walls to govern his own desires. Without these walls, external currents decide where he will go. And see how anxiety becomes a subtle thief. It does not steal at once, but little by little. A piece of sleep here, a moment of peace there, a poorly made decision over there. Until the man realizes he has lost years chasing mirages. Wise man, anxiety adds nothing, it only drains. It turns the heart into barren ground, because every seed of an idea is pulled out before it grows. Like a farmer who digs the soil every day to see if the root has sprouted and ends up killing the harvest. This immediacy that governs the heart is described by science as hyperbolic discounting. We prefer smaller gains now to greater rewards in the future. But long before science named this behavior, I had already written about it. Man who fears God, I said that firm plans lead to abundance, but haste leads to poverty. And I also taught that the diligent will prosper, while the anxious will waste. The word of God had already shown that patience is not weakness, it is intelligence. Think with me of something simple, a fruit tree. The anxious man plants and already wants to harvest on the same day. He gets irritated with the wait, tears off branches, tries to speed up processes, and in the end he harvests nothing. But the man who has self-control waters, prunes, waits. He understands that the time to bear fruit will come, and therefore he enjoys the harvest. Wise man, so it is also with your career, with your business, with your family. The greater fruit always belongs to the one who knew how to sustain constancy. And remember, wealth without limits is vanity. The one who is governed by desire never finds rest, because when he gets one thing, he already runs after another, and then another. It is like drinking salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become. Man who fears God, that is why I wrote that whoever loves money is never satisfied with it. True prosperity is not in accumulating without restraint, but in working with purpose, enjoying the fruit, and recognizing that it comes from the hands of God. That is why I say that money governed by desires is wind, but money governed by purpose is inheritance. When there is self-control, the man does not spend to impress, but invests to sustain. He does not buy to relieve anxiety, but sows to reap at the right time. Wise man, this is the difference between wealth that makes you sick and wealth that gives rest, between gold that flies away and an inheritance that remains. And finally, see how constancy generates trust. Clients return to negotiate with the predictable man. Families rest in the heart that does not change every day. Alliances are strengthened when they know the ally will be present even on evil days. Man who fears God, whoever is predictable in character, is honored, because his walls have no breaches and his steps do not falter. And this honor does not come by chance, but by discipline. Self-control creates the stability that sustains trust, and trust is the most valuable currency of all. Let us now go to Ecclesiastes chapter 5, from verse 10 to 20. There I wrote, "Whoever loves money is never satisfied with money. Whoever loves abundance is never content with income. This too is vanity. When goods increase, those who consume them increase. And what advantage does their owner have? except to look at them with his eyes. Sweet is the sleep of the worker, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich does not let him sleep. Wise man, what I wanted to show here is that anxiety for quick gain is a never-ending cycle. Whoever is governed by desire never rests, because the inner emptiness turns wealth into a burden. But the man who works with purpose enjoys peace. And I went on to say, here is what I have seen to be good and fitting, to eat, to drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor. This is the portion God gives him. As for the man to whom God has given wealth and possessions, and given him power to enjoy them and to take his portion and rejoice in his labor, this is the gift of God, for he will not dwell much on the days of his life, because God fills his heart with joy. Man who fears God, notice how the emphasis is on enjoyment and not on accumulation. Wealth becomes a blessing when used with balance, but becomes vanity when driven by anxiety. I also want to read in the Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7. I wrote, "Love is as strong as death. Its ardors are like flames of fire, a flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can rivers drown it. Even if someone were to give all the wealth of his house for love, he would be utterly despised." Wise man, here I wanted to teach that love and purpose have greater value than all wealth. Anxiety runs after gold, but the disciplined heart keeps love and meaning first, because without them, all gain is lost in the wind. Therefore, understand, prosperity without limits becomes vanity, but prosperity governed by self-control generates rest. Man who fears God, it is not how much you possess that reveals your wealth, but how you govern what God has placed in your hands. If love is at the center, if purpose is the compass, then the fruit of labor will be joy and not anguish. That is what I wanted to show, that there is no point in possessing much if the heart remains empty. But when the heart is governed by purpose and discipline, even little becomes abundance before the Lord. Wise man, understand with me that prosperity is not measured only by how much is accumulated, but by the stability that is built. An empire raised upon desires is like a castle made of sand, beautiful to the eyes, but fragile at the first wind. Money governed by anxiety brings only rush and restlessness, but money governed by self-control creates rest, brings safety, and allows you to enjoy life with serenity. That is why I said that true abundance is born from a disciplined heart that knows how to wait for the right time and does not allow itself to be dragged by haste, and see that prosperity with purpose turns even the simplest work into inheritance. Man who fears God, when you understand why you do what you do, even effort becomes light, because there is joy in seeing meaning in what is built. But whoever lives, moved only by haste, never finds peace. He trades nights of sleep for passing gains, health for rush, family for boundless ambition, and in the end he discovers that he has lost what was essential. Prosperity without purpose is vanity. That is why financial discipline is not just calculation, it is a spiritual act. When you choose to say no to a momentary desire to honor a greater goal, you are raising invisible walls that protect your life. Wise man, every time you keep your word, every time you sustain a commitment, every time you prefer constancy over impulse, you are building trust. And trust is the foundation of lasting prosperity. Without it, any achievement becomes temporary, but with it, even small victories become great harvests. Constancy is like the rainy season. It does not arrive suddenly with a single thunderclap, but drips day after day until it soaks the earth. Man who fears God, trust is born like this. Not in great sporadic feats, but in small acts repeated with faithfulness. When your family knows it can count on your word. When your co-workers know you do not change according to your mood. When your clients perceive that you always deliver with the same dedication, that is when the walls become strong. And I want you to see how predictability, so criticized by some, is in fact a sign of honor. Wise man, a predictable man is not boring, he is reliable. He does not surprise with withdrawals, he does not betray with absences, he does not confuse with ambiguous words. On the contrary, he inspires safety because everyone knows what to expect from him. This is what opens doors, what maintains alliances, what sustains relationships. Constancy is a wall, and a solid wall is an invitation to lasting trust. If these words are building you up and making sense within you, leave your like on the video and subscribe to this channel. Do not let this opportunity pass. Here you will receive my daily counsel for the construction of a prosperous and epic life. Without discipline, even the greatest riches lose value, because it is useless to have gold and not have anyone who trusts you. It is useless to raise palaces if no one wants to dwell in them. Man who fears God, I have already said that money governed by desires is wind. It passes through the hands and leaves no inheritance, but when governed by discipline and constancy, it becomes legacy, rest, and testimony that God honors the one who remains firm. And notice how self-control is not only for finances, but for all areas. It is what protects your family from instability, protects your projects from haste, protects your relationships from thoughtless words. Wise man, if there is no self-government, everything you build becomes vulnerable. But if there is constancy, even in storms, your life remains standing. Discipline is the mortar that binds each stone of your story. Therefore, man who fears God, do not despise the small acts of daily self-control. They are like invisible bricks raising walls around your life. Perhaps no one sees now, perhaps it seems slow, but each firm choice, each word kept, each patient decision is strengthening your walls. And at the right time, when the winds blow and the rivers overflow, it will be this constancy that will sustain your house. Because where there is discipline, there is trust. And where there is trust, there is true prosperity. The mastery of emotions and the tongue. Wise man, I want you to understand with me an essential principle. It is not only finances or projects that collapse without discipline. Even the greatest achievements can fall apart when there is no governance over emotions and over the tongue. For an empire can be built over decades, but a hasty word can topple it in seconds. Just as a spark can set an entire forest on fire, so an unbridled tongue can consume relationships, businesses, and reputations. That is why I insisted on teaching that true power is not only in governing riches or lands, but in mastering one's own spirit. Let us now open the Bible in Proverbs chapter 15, verses 1 to 4. There I wrote, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge attractive, but the mouth of fools gushes folly. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, watching the evil and the good. A calm tongue is a tree of life, but a perverse tongue crushes the spirit." Man who fears God, what I meant to teach is that it is not brute force that resolves conflicts, but the word spoken with meekness. The tongue can be poison, but it can also be medicine. It is each one's choice to use the mouth to sow life or destruction. Now let us go to Proverbs chapter 18, verses 20 and 21. I wrote, "From the fruit of the mouth the heart is filled, from the harvest of the lips a man is satisfied. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." Wise man, notice the weight I placed upon words. Life and death, blessing and curse, construction and destruction. All of this fits inside what we say. What I meant to show is that no one feeds only on bread, but also on the fruit of his mouth. And a man reaps what he sows with his lips. And I also want to read in Proverbs chapter 22, verses 24 to 29. I wrote, "Do not befriend the hot-tempered, nor walk with a man given to anger, lest you learn his ways and set a snare for your soul. Have you seen a man diligent in his work? He will stand before kings, he will not stand before obscure men." Man who fears God. See how I joined two lessons here. First, that anger contaminates. Walking with the uncontrolled is to learn his lack of control. Second, that excellence sustained by discipline leads to honor. What I meant to teach is that the man who governs his emotions and his tongue is the same who reaches places of prominence, not because he seeks honor, but because constancy makes him trustworthy even before kings. Wise man, think with me about the effect of a sudden explosion. A stone thrown against the wall opens a small crack that soon becomes an entry for enemies. So it is with a hasty word. It may seem like a momentary outburst, but it turns into a fissure in the wall of trust. Years of closeness, of respect, of building together, can crumble because of a sentence spoken in anger. That is why I said that a gentle answer turns away wrath, because the word spoken with meekness not only avoids conflicts, it seals walls that lack of control would have split. Many do not perceive it, but the unbridled tongue is like an unsheathed sword. It cuts the one in front, but it also wounds the one who holds it. Man who fears God, understand that it is not only about protecting others, but about protecting yourself. When a man explodes with harsh words, he does not destroy only the bonds around him, he also corrodes his own honor. And without honor, no rain stands. That is why I insisted on showing that the tongue can produce life or death. It is not an exaggeration. It is reality. And there is an important detail. The word does not return. An arrow loosed may be recalled if it is still on the bow, but once it flies, there is no way to bring it back. So it is with words. Wise man, once spoken, they travel paths, mark hearts, influence decisions. You may even ask for forgiveness, but the memory of the blow often remains. Therefore, I insisted so much on the need to master the mouth before anger turns into speech. See also how a given word is invisible wealth. Man who fears God, when someone trusts what you say, he is placing part of himself into your hands. It is as if he placed a treasure in your vault. But if you break that commitment, if your tongue promises and does not fulfill, the treasure is lost. And more serious still, the vault becomes useless. No one wishes to place anything there anymore. The discipline of the tongue protects not only relationships, but also credibility. And credibility is a patrimony greater than gold. When I wrote that one should not walk with the hot-tempered man, it was because I perceived that anger is contagious. Like fire that jumps from one dry branch to another, a man's rage spreads to those who are near. And soon one who did not have that habit begins to repeat it. Wise man living with the uncontrolled teaches disorder. It is an invisible yet real risk. That is why I say, protect your walls not only against your own impulses, but also against influences that want to crack them. And see how excellence connects to mastery of the tongue. Man who fears God, the one who governs his emotions, does not lose himself in useless arguments, but concentrates his energy on producing. And this focus generates fruit. And these fruits draw the attention even of kings. I wrote that the man diligent in his work will stand before kings. And I say more. He does not get there by chance, but because his constancy and inner government qualify him for it. No one trusts the unstable, but all rely on the one who is predictable in word and attitude. The lack of control of the tongue does not waste only opportunities. It wastes hearts. Friendships are undermined. Families drift apart. Partnerships are broken. Wise man realize that each time anger governs your mouth, you give up something precious that took time to conquer. And this loss often cannot be recovered. It is like a broken vessel. It can be glued, but it will never be the same. That is why self-government is so vital. It not only guards the present, it preserves the future. Therefore, man who fears God, understand that mastery of emotions and of the tongue is one of the greatest riches you can possess. It is not about always being silent, but about knowing the right time to speak. It is not about never feeling, but discerning when to express. Whoever masters his tongue erects walls of trust. Whoever governs his anger keeps households in peace. Whoever sustains his word creates alliances that last for generations. This is the invisible power of self-government. Without it, any achievement dissolves. But with it, even small acts turn into eternal honor. I now want to open the word in Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verses 9 to 12. There I wrote, "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. Again, if two lie together, they keep warm, but how can one keep warm alone? And though a man might prevail against one, two will withstand him. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken." Wise man, what I wanted to show is that life was made for alliances. Relationships are like shared walls. When there is discipline and respect, one protects the other. But when there is lack of control, the wall breaks and all are exposed. I want to move now to the Song of Songs, chapter 4, verses 12 to 16. There I described love as a locked garden, a sealed fountain, a guarded spring. Man who fears God, see the metaphor. The garden blooms because it is fenced. It is not abandoned to neglect, but protected so that the fruits may ripen. What I meant to teach is that love does not grow amid disorder. It needs walls of respect, of discipline, of commitment. Without limits, affection becomes a devastated field. But with self-mastery, it becomes a fruitful and pleasant garden. Allow me also to read in Psalms chapter 34, verses 12 to 14. Words of my father David. Who is the man who desires life and loves many days, that he may see good? Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. Turn away from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Wise man, notice how my father directly connected long and prosperous life with mastery of the tongue. It is not merely a matter of morality, it is a matter of survival. Because an ungoverned mouth not only offends, it opens breaches that destroy relationships, businesses, families. And without solid relationships, life loses its strength. Therefore, man who fears God understands that love, respect, and alliances do not survive lack of control. Mastery of emotions and of the tongue does not suffocate bonds, it protects them. It is what guards the garden of affection, keeps partnerships firm, sustains entire families. And when you raise walls of discipline around the heart, you are not only protecting yourself, but also shielding all those who walk by your side. That is what I learned from my father David, and that is what I wrote in my songs and Proverbs. Without limits, love is lost, but kept by discipline, it blossoms like a locked garden, a sealed spring, an eternal heritage. Wise man, I want you to reflect with me on the power of protecting love with limits. When I wrote about the locked garden, I did not mean prison, but care. Just as the vine dresser fences his vineyard so that foxes do not devour the fruit, so the man who fears God raises walls around his relationships, not to suffocate, but to preserve. Affection blooms when guarded by respect, discipline, and honor. Without these walls, even true feelings wear down. But when fenced, bonds are strengthened and bear lasting fruit. See how many waste love for lack of self-government. Man who fears God, a moment of explosion can erase years of care. A careless word can wound the heart that trusted most. And when trust is broken, the bond becomes like a cracked wall. It can be repaired, but never without scars. That is why I said that a serene tongue is a tree of life, because each word spoken with self-mastery is like water that nourishes, while each hasty word is like poison that dries the roots. And it is not only in marital love that this happens. Friendships, business partnerships, family relationships, all are weakened when there is no emotional discipline. Wise man, the man who governs himself, becomes a refuge, but the one who lets himself be governed by impulses becomes a threat. Notice the difference. One gives rest, the other generates insecurity. Therefore, self-control is not an isolated virtue. It is the foundation of all solid bonds. I have seen great men lose everything not for lack of talent or wealth, but for lack of control. Man who fears God, the man who does not guard his emotions, wastes not only goods but people. He loses the hearts that trusted him for support. He loses the honor that took years to build. He loses the stability that could have sustained his house. And all this because he did not build walls around the tongue and anger. He did not realize the enemy did not need to attack from outside, for there was already a breach within. And I want you to see with me that it is not enough to merely ask forgiveness after the explosion. It is necessary to learn not to explode. Because each time the wall is broken, it takes time and effort to restore it. Wise man, mastering oneself is always easier than rebuilding what was torn down. Discipline spares tears, avoids wounds, guards alliances. It is like a sentry who watches day and night so that enemies do not cross the gates. Mastery of emotions is also a source of wisdom on the evil day. When pressure increases, those who lack self-government lose their way. But those who are disciplined, though struck down, remain standing. Man who fears God, it does not mean you will not feel pain, but that you will not be governed by it. And that is what sustains families, businesses, ministries. It is not the absence of battles, but the capacity not to be dragged by inner storms. And see, emotional discipline also protects the heart itself. because those who explode always regret afterward. Those who speak without thinking always carry guilt. Those who promise in the heat of emotion and do not fulfill carry shame. Wise man's self-government not only protects others from us, it also protects us from ourselves. It guards our conscience, preserves our peace, sustains our honor. Therefore I say, raise strong walls around your tongue and your emotions. Do not allow anger to decide for you, nor anxiety to steal your relationships. Man who fears God, each disciplined choice is a brick in this wall, each wise silence is mortar, each guarded word is a stone of support. And when this wall is raised, your house will remain firm, your bonds will blossom, and your honor will be preserved. This is the invisible wealth worth more than gold. Now, wise man, I want us to make together one more moment of communion. Close your eyes and give to the Lord those emotions that still slip past your walls. It may be anger, it may be anxiety, it may be the tongue that insists on wounding. Place everything before God now. Ask Him to be the guardian of your words and the wall around your heart. And if you feel it in your spirit, write in the comments which area of your life you need the Lord to strengthen, or simply tell me which verse or teaching has most impacted you so far. Also intercede for another man who fears God, who has opened his heart and needs this same protection. The invisible guardian. Wise man, we have reached the essence of everything that has been said. Self-control is the invisible wall that sustains the city of life. Without it, impulses enter and plunder. Words tear down relationships. Disordered desires consume resources. But when there are firm walls, the man remains standing. His fruits ripen, his alliances are strengthened, and his house is guarded. That is why I wrote so many times about patience, diligence, and discipline, because there is no prosperity without stability, no inheritance without constancy, no honor without self-government. See with me how the Word of God leads us in 3 dimensions. In Proverbs, the emphasis is practical: focus, diligence, daily discipline. In Ecclesiastes, the emphasis is purpose, contentment, limits, meaning in work and rest. And in the Song of Songs, the emphasis is relationship, bonds protected by respect and honor. God-fearing man, all these voices come together to show that self-control is not prison, but true freedom. I tell you, raise your inner walls today. Submit your desires to your values. Treat your emotions with clarity. Maintain constancy in your choices. Protect your time, your money, your words, and your relationships with clear boundaries. Always choose what sustains tomorrow instead of what only satisfies now. Wise man, do this and you will see your life become a fortified city, able to withstand the winds, the storms, and the pressures of the world. Let us pray together. Lord, I ask that every man who fears you, who has heard these words, receive from your Spirit discernment to build strong walls around his heart. May every emotion be guarded, every desire be submitted, every decision be sustained by constancy. May the enemy find no breaches. May the walls not break, may the city of life remain standing. Strengthen, O God, every step, every word, every choice. May the days be established by your counsel, and may the inheritance be preserved for the next generations. And now I leave you with an invitation. Apply today a practical boundary in your life. It may be in time, in finances, or in your word. Choose a wall to raise today and remain in it. And if you desire to continue growing in the wisdom that comes from above, subscribe to the channel and leave your like on this video. Together, we will build a generation of wise and God-fearing men, guarded by invisible walls that will never be torn down.